If you have Netflix, most of us do. The Office. We all watch The Office. Now, the funny thing is that I want to say about a month ago. So I do jog on the treadmill 4 miles a day every day, and no matter what, I jog 4 miles a day. The only day over the last month where I didn't was the day the NHL canceled everything, and I went all day, and I just couldn't put my mind on anything else, and my brain was just ready to explode. But every other day, I've been on the treadmill, and it's important to stay in a routine like that. And people will say, well, being on a treadmill is not the same as pounding pavement. Yeah, it's a lot easier on my knees, and I'm very grateful that I'm not pounding pavement. So I'm very glad to have the treadmill. And if you have it on an angle, it has less impact on your knees as well. I understand that there are some drawbacks to jogging that much, but I think being thinner and more in shape, I think, is important too. Especially right now. Right now, it feels like losing some weight and being in better shape might make me better prepared for anything that's going to come down the pike. But while I'm jogging, I need to have something to watch. And for me, it's been The Office. So I've been watching 2 episodes a day, sometimes three. And, going from season 1 through, I'm now halfway through season 5, and you watch as the show becomes, it becomes less funny, not because of the writing not being as good. The funny starts to go away as all of the characters become less polarizing, where they kind of just sort of all mix together, and there's still some jokes in there where they're offending each other, but for the most part, everybody kind of gets along by the time season 5 rolls around. And, even Jim and Dwight start getting along pretty well, and even when they fight, it still doesn't have the same bite that it did early on. And once Jim and Pam get along and they're together, and that whole thing with Roy disappears. So again, there's some changes in the show along the way, and I got asked in a live stream the other day about who my favorite character was in The Office, and I thought that's a fascinating question. So I wanted to go through and figure this out. So I have a top 6 because I don't want to leave any of these 6 out, and I'll explain my top 6. And I'm going to give an honorable mention to Pam. Pam, I love Jenna Fisher. I think she's fantastic. But Pam, as the show goes along, she goes from your plucky underdog sort of, she's going to do it, to, okay, well, she failed at that. Oh, she failed at that too. And then she was kind of obnoxious there. And that's kind of what happens to characters as this show goes along. The ones that you're really rooting for in season 1 might not be the ones you're rooting for by the time the show comes to an end. So, at 6, so since I gave Pam an honorable mention, I'm going to put Jim at 6. Now, the funny thing is, Jim is the character that I identify most with from jobs I've had before. I've been that guy who's in an office job that I'm like, I don't want to be here, I don't like it here, and I'm the one who's probably looking around at a camera that's not there and making faces. And I used to do that. The faces Jim makes, I would hear somebody on a phone call behind me, I'd be like, does anybody else hear this? And I would be making those faces, so I totally identify with Jim, and I think most people who've had office jobs have had those days, where you're looking for a camera that's not there on a wall and going, seriously, what is with this person? What in serious? That customer's calling back and getting me next time, and you're just riling them up and hanging up the phone. Thanks. So Jim is somebody I identify with, but as the show goes along, he becomes less relatable, and he kind of does some jerkish things. There are jerkish things that happen, and there are definitely people out there who like Dwight and don't like Jim, and think that Dwight was in the right the whole time. Although the weapons, for me, kind of disqualify Dwight from being great about everything. You don't need all those weapons in the office. Although, when Roy goes after Jim and he gets the pepper spray from Dwight was correct on that occasion. Number 5. I'm going to put Stanley at 5, and I'm going to explain why. Stanley is a good character, but he's a secondary character. So you don't find out a whole lot about Stanley. Now, as we learned with Dwight is a lesson in how sometimes the more you learn about a character and the less mystery they have, the less interesting they can get. Dwight, they had the idea of giving him his own show, which I thought sounded like a good idea, and then I saw that episode and I went, no, it's a bad idea. So Dwight would have been better off if they didn't show more. Just leave every now and then. You show the farm, you show the beats, you show Mose, cousin Mose, and you leave it at that. Just leave it at that. And all these stories he tells, don't tell us whether or not they're true. Don't make him a normal person. Just make him kind of weird and sort of we're wondering what is or isn't true. So for me, Stanley is an example of how they maintained that mystery throughout. We didn't see a whole lot of Stanley's life outside the office, and that's for the best. I think Stanley as a character, just from what is revealed about him with his marital issues, I don't know that Stanley would have been a particularly sympathetic character for fans if they get further into that. So, Stanley, a lot of fun. Did I stutter? Boy, have you lost your mind, because I'll help you find it. That is one of the greatest lines in the history of television. That is absolutely, you see some guy and he's talking to your young daughter, that's exactly what a man would say. And just how angry Stanley was, absolutely perfect. So Stanley, number 5 on this one. Ryan's not on the list. Number 4. Yeah, I'll put this person at number 4. Meredith. Meredith is, much like Stanley, a character that if we spent a lot of time with Meredith, we probably wouldn't feel very sympathetic towards. But Meredith is genuinely funny. Casual Day. Casual Day is really funny. And it's sort of, for all the wrong reasons, Meredith's entertaining. So I do enjoy Meredith's character. I love that she drinks and they're unabashedly showing us, just the dangers of that, and yet she's kind of like, whatever. And Meredith is excellent. Now, honorable mention to Kevin. So, Kevin, for me, Kevin, you could kind of put at 7 if I was going to go that far. Kevin, though, is inconsistent. There are times where he comes across as creepy. There are times where he comes across kind of like a little kid. There are some times where he just comes across as really, really simple, like when Holly comes to the office and she's told that he's special needs, and that's why they hired him. And that's a line that they kind of cross where you're thinking, could you get away with that now? Maybe not. But it is really funny when she's standing next to Kevin and she's trying to get him to pick a chocolate bar, and he's like, she's hitting on me. And she, meanwhile, is just going, oh, he needs help picking a chocolate bar. And it's just, it is funny and it's plain and simple. But then there are some moments where Kevin just crosses that line into creepy, like when Pam's wearing the librarian type glasses and he's like trying to get her to say librarian things because it's turn on for him, and it's like, so that's why Kevin doesn't end up in my top 6. So yeah, Meredith ends up at number 4. Number 3. Michael. Now, Michael consistently gets the most laughs on the show. Michael also has the most cringeworthy moments on the show. Michael has plenty of moments where he's not a sympathetic character, and that's how it's designed. But Michael as well, his character kind of, meanders. And towards the time where he left the show, he knew when it was time to go. And he left at the exact right time, because Michael had run his course. I think for me with Michael, when he was fooling around with a married woman and he knew she was married, it's like, come on. Michael's got to have a line somewhere here, and yet I guess there are times where that line gets kind of blurry. Michael, again, he can be really funny at times and really clueless at others. The one thing with Michael that is genuinely funny all the way through is when he uses words that aren't exactly the word he means, so he means a different word. And it's something that I do in my everyday speech too, where I will be talking about, it might be a band, movie, it might be something that was in the news, and it might just be that there's a fancy word in the middle of a sentence, and so while I'm talking to my wife about it, I will intentionally use the wrong word, and she'll kind of give me a funny look, and I'll go, what? And I'll repeat it, and she's like, I don't think you've got that right. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure. And that's because, Michael did that, and I always thought it was really funny, where he would get it wrong. And he would just double down on it, even though he was completely wrong. So, yeah, Michael, I have it number 3. Number 2, yeah, all right. Feet to the fire, I have to put Creed at 2nd. Who is Creed? Because his name's not Creed. We find out, If you go through all of the Creed stuff, right from the first season right through until, like I said, I'm in season 5, there was a line in there where he said the last person who crossed him, got in his way, was Creed Bratton. And it's his way of going, yeah, this isn't my identity. I stole this from somebody else, and he's probably dead. Now, Creed is absolutely spot on, hilarious. And as the show goes along, he gets funnier. Creed Thoughts is absolutely so funny. And the fact that Ryan's like, yeah, this stuff Creed's thinking, it's bizarre and it's alarming, even for the internet. They never, much like with Stanley, you never get into who Creed is, what any of that. They never get into it, and that makes Creed a better character. That they never overexpose it. It's not like you go to Creed's house and find out he's just a crazy old man. None of that stuff's true. You meet, his son or his family. No, there's none of that. You never find out anything about Creed other than the stuff in the office, and sometimes that's for the best. Part of what makes Jim and Pam lose their magic they have in early seasons isn't just the whole Roy thing and that they're unrequited love. It's that there's mystery there. There's mystery to their lives outside of the office, and it definitely makes for better characters to just sort of leave it as it is. Number 1, everybody knew. It's the reason I have this shirt. False, Black Bear. This everything about Dwight is fantastic, and Dwight's character remains pretty consistent. I'm going to say this, though. For people who criticize the Dwight character and say, he starts out looking kind of smart and then he ends up looking like a complete moron and a buffoon. Yes. Depending on the episode, depending on what they're going for with Dwight that night, he can come across as something completely different. And it is a consistency issue, and certainly if you're looking for plot inconsistencies, this show is rife with it. They have a Christmas party. Michael wants to have alcohol. Toby says, not allowed to have alcohol at a Christmas party. Every Christmas party after that, they have alcohol, and Toby never says anything about it again. So, and then of course, is Toby the Scranton Strangler? Depending on which internet theory you read, he is or he isn't. And the writers of the show won't tell you whether he was or he wasn't. Just that it was kind of a throwaway thing that they just kept putting in there. And there are enough theories out there to tell you he may very well have been the Carol Baskin of The Office. He just had enough and he snapped and he was the Scranton Strangler. Or he wasn't. Andy I was never a big fan of on the show. I was not a big fan of Erin, which is weird because the actress that plays Erin, love her. She's fantastic. Kimmy Schmidt's a great show. She's a delight and she's a good comedian as well. But I never liked Erin on the show because I felt like she was unnecessary. I felt like we already had Pam. Pam could have stayed as the receptionist. She didn't have to go into sales. As much as the Michael Scott Paper Company episodes were really funny, for the most part anyway. Some of it's kind of weird, but pretty funny. But still, Pam should have been the receptionist. And I say that because that was sort of something that when it changed, it just didn't feel right. She was lousy as a salesperson, just like she failed art school. And it is hard to root for a character when they're just failing along the way, even if that realistically is the way things work for some people. But yeah, so those are my 6 favorite characters from The Office. And I feel pretty good about my list. And again, I liked everybody on the show. Except for the most part, yeah, Andy. Andy's the only one that I was never a fan of. And then, that when the funny thing was when Erin left him for Gabe, and I kind of sort of felt bad for him at that point. But then he was insufferable. And I just thought, wow, Erin dodged a bullet. And then Erin goes back to him and I'm like, I thought she dodged a bullet there, but all right. And it was just it was a bunch of crap that happened at that stage. That's where the show was really kind of not as good. And honestly, when Michael left The Office and they were rotating through who was going to run it, they should have just given it to Dwight or Andy and then just gone from there. Just said, okay, Michael's gone, and now Andy's in charge. Now Dwight's in charge. The only one you can't give it to is Jim. Jim could never have been the boss and make the show funny. Because, again, it has to be somebody who's kind of off the wall, not good at keeping people organized, And so it couldn't have been them. Or you could have gone a different route altogether, and Angela runs it, or something like that. Angela's not on the board, but there are some really funny moments with Angela, as disturbingly close as she is with cats. And I say that as somebody who's got 2 cats on a cat tree behind me. Her relationship with cats, slightly disturbing. But there you go. Let me know your favorite character from The Office. If you don't watch The Office or haven't watched it, what you must not have Netflix. Because I think everybody's watched it, and it's funny because it's a show that when it was in its first run on TV, I didn't really bother with it until about the 4th season, because I hadn't really liked the episode that I'd seen in the first season. So I kind of went, this is whatever. And so it went into syndication. I started watching them in syndication every day, and then I went and started watching it on NBC after that. So it is definitely a show that works better in syndication. To me anyways, it was a show that worked better in syndication and doing a binge watch than it did in watching it once a week build up. But, that I think is part of the reason why it's been so popular on Netflix. It is a great show to binge watch. But you can watch as it slowly declines in quality. Also, before I close out, yes, all of the characters that I think are the best characters were all in that first season. They were all there. And I think there's something to be said for the original cast being kind of the best cast. But Rashida Jones as Karen. Karen was an interesting character, but she was there just to block Jim and Pam from each other, which I thought was kind of lame. And I don't like that in TV shows. Think of Big Bang Theory and what Priya did. The only reason Priya's in the show is to keep Leonard and Penny apart. So once Priya is out, then you put Leonard and Penny together. And just, I don't like it when TV shows do it. They did it on Friends a bunch of times where, we're going to put surprise, here's the new boyfriend. Oh, we got to go through a season with the new girlfriend or the new boyfriend. You just know they're going to get back together. So that's one thing that drives me insane. And I don't like it in any TV show. I think there's got to be a better way to do it than just, we got to keep them apart. Let's make up a brand new person. It's like Roy on The Simpsons. Or Poochie on Simpsons too, right? Same episode, Poochie and Roy. See you later, Roy. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Do stay safe. Wash your hands regularly, as I've been saying. And hey, thank you guys so much for everything. I will talk to you again soon.